All right, so you sent over a really fascinating collection of sources for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Historical accounts and modern events, even some cultural analysis,
Right.
all focused on secret societies and cults. I
Yeah.
have to admit, I'm a little nervous to wade into these murky waters,
Yeah.
but also incredibly curious.
It's understandable to feel that way.
Yeah.
These groups often evoke strong reactions, a mixture of fascination and fear.
Yeah.
What's important for this deep dive is to go beyond the sensational headlines and really try to understand the appeal of these groups, the reasons why people join them, and the impact that they have.
Right. And to be clear, we're not endorsing any particular viewpoints here.
Right.
We're just trying to unravel fact from fiction and get a clearer picture of what's really going on.
Precisely, it's about understanding the human element behind these organizations, exploring the motivations and desires that drive individuals to seek out these alternative communities and belief systems.
Okay, so let's start with what's probably the most well-known secret society.
Okay.
The Freemasons. They've been around for centuries.
Right.
And even some of America's founding fathers, like Benjamin Franklin, were members.
Yes.
So they clearly weren't always seen as this shadowy, secretive group.
That's a key point. The Freemasons at their core promote brotherhood, morality, and charity. They have a long and complex history, and their image has shifted over time.
Yet there are those who still view them with suspicion,
Right.
claiming they're involved in some kind of satanic plot to control the world.
Yeah.
Some even link them to events like the French Revolution.
Those claims tend to rely on exaggeration and misinformation. Attributing something as complex as the French Revolution solely to the Freemasons is a vast oversimplification.
So if they're not plotting world domination, what is it about the Freemasons that draws people in?
But their rituals and shared beliefs play a big role.
Okay.
Think about their secret handshakes, symbols, and elaborate initiation ceremonies. These elements create a sense of belonging, of exclusivity.
Okay.
Humans are social creatures, and we're naturally drawn to groups that offer a sense of community and shared purpose.
That makes sense. It's like an in-group feeling amplified by a layer of mystery and tradition.
Exactly.
And speaking of exclusivity and mystery, we have to talk about Skull and Bones.
Oh.
This is that super secretive society at Yale University with some seriously powerful alumni, including presidents like George H.W. Bush and his son.
Skull and Bones is a fascinating case study in how secrecy and exclusivity can contribute to a group's power and influence. Their rituals involving things like mock human sacrifice and confessions of personal secrets sounds strange to outsiders.
It's like something out of a movie.
Right.
And then there's the numerology they're obsessed with, like the number 322, which is everywhere in their symbolism. They even supposedly steal license plates with that number.
It's easy to dismiss those details as trivial.
Yeah.
But they become incredibly significant within the group's culture. They create a shared narrative.
Yeah.
A sense of belonging to something unique and powerful.
It makes you wonder if those rituals, combined with their exclusivity and the success of their members, create a sense of superiority or entitlement.
Right.
Like they're part of a select group destined for greatness.
That's a perceptive observation, and it raises some interesting questions about the psychological effects of belonging to such a group. Do these rituals and traditions, shrouded in secrecy, contribute to a particular mindset or worldview among members?
Right.
That's something worth considering.
Okay, so from Yale's hallowed halls, let's move to the redwood forests of California.
Okay.
Where we find Bohemian Grove. This is where the rich and powerful supposedly gather every summer for 2 weeks of, well, we're not entirely sure what goes on there.
Right. The secrecy surrounding Bohemian Grove, and of course, fueled all sorts of speculation.
Right.
Richard Nixon famously called it the most faggy goddamn thing you could imagine.
Wow.
Which doesn't really tell us much, but it certainly adds to the intrigue.
It does make you wonder what really happens behind those closed gates.
Right.
We have these groups with rituals and symbolism, with secrecy and powerful members. And in the case of Bohemian Grove, a blend of wealth, power, and mystery.
Yeah.
What does this all say about the enduring appeal of secret societies?
I think it speaks to our deep-seated desires for belonging, purpose, and meaning. These groups offer a sense of community and shared values.
Right.
Often coupled with the allure of exclusivity and knowledge that's not available to outsiders.
It's like a glimpse into a hidden world.
Yeah.
One that operates behind the scenes of everyday life.
Right.
Which I guess makes sense because that's what secret societies are all about.
Exactly.
But then there are cults, which are often seen as much more sinister and dangerous.
Right.
Is it just a matter of degrees? Or is there a more fundamental difference between the two?
That's a question worth exploring.
Yeah.
While there can be some overlap, a key distinction lies in the level of control exerted by leaders and the potential for harm to members.
So it's not just about having unusual beliefs,
Right.
but about how those beliefs are enforced.
Yeah.
And the impact they have on people's lives.
Exactly. Cults often involve a charismatic leader who demands absolute obedience and loyalty. This control can extend to every aspect of a member's life, from their finances and relationships to their very thoughts and beliefs.
And that's where the potential for harm really comes in.
Yeah.
We've seen examples of cults isolating members from their families, exploiting them financially, and subjecting them to psychological manipulation or even physical abuse.
It's crucial to remember that not all groups with unusual beliefs are harmful.
Right.
But the combination of control and potential harm is what distinguishes a cult.
All right. Now that we have a clear understanding of what makes a cult, let's delve into some of those specific examples.
Yeah.
One of the sources you sent mentions Koreshanity, a group from the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Right.
They believed in something called the hollow earth theory.
Koreshanity is a fascinating case study in how seemingly scientific ideas can be intertwined with bizarre spiritual claims. Their founder, Cyrus Teed, used scientific-sounding language and complex diagrams to explain his theory that we actually live on the inside of a hollow sphere with the sun, moon, and stars all contained within.
So basically they thought the Earth was like a giant inverted snow globe?
Essentially, yes. And what's striking is how Teed blended these scientific-sounding elements with his own unique spiritual interpretations. This created a system of belief that, while demonstrably false, held a strange allure for those seeking alternative explanations of the world.
It does make you wonder what drew people to such an outlandish idea.
Like many cults, Christianity offered a sense of community and belonging. They established a self-sufficient colony in Florida, promoting equality and communal living. For some, this utopian vision, combined with Teed's charismatic leadership, outweighed the strangeness of their core belief.
It's a reminder that even the most seemingly bizarre ideas can resonate with people who are seeking meaning and connection.
Precisely. And this brings us to a much darker example, Charles Manson and his family. This case tragically highlights the extremes to which charismatic leadership and apocalyptic prophecies can lead.
This is where things take a chilling turn. Manson, a deeply disturbed individual, managed to manipulate his followers into committing horrific acts of violence.
Manson twisted pop culture and religious ideas, particularly from the Book of Revelation, to create a narrative of a coming race war. He convinced his followers that they would emerge as rulers after this apocalyptic event, using this belief to justify his horrific crimes.
It's hard to comprehend the level of manipulation and brainwashing that must have been involved.
Manson was a master manipulator. He preyed on vulnerable individuals, offering them a sense of belonging and purpose, while simultaneously isolating them from the outside world and reinforcing his own twisted ideology. This created a dangerous cocktail of blind loyalty and unquestioning obedience.
It's a stark reminder that the allure of cults can have devastating consequences.
Indeed. And while Manson's case is an extreme example, it underscores the importance of critical thinking and recognizing the signs of manipulation. Which brings us to another cult with a captivating and disturbing story. Rajneeshpuram. I'm particularly struck by the bioterrorism incident they were involved in.
The story of Rajneeshpuram is wild. From Rolls Royces to poisoning salad bars, how did this seemingly utopian community go so wrong?
Rajneeshpuram, established in Oregon in the 1980s by the Indian guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, initially presented itself as a spiritual retreat focused on meditation and self-discovery. But the community's leadership, particularly Rajneesh and his close confidante, Ma Anand Sheela, gradually exerted more and more control over members' lives.
And this control ultimately led to violence and criminal activity.
Yes. In an attempt to influence a local election,
Okay.
Sheila and her followers contaminated salad bars with salmonella.
Oh, wow.
Sickening hundreds of people.
Wow.
It was a calculated act of bioterrorism, driven by a win-at-all-costs mentality.
It's chilling to see how quickly a group that promotes peace and enlightenment can descend into such darkness.
Right.
These examples, while diverse in their beliefs and practices, all point to the dangers of unchecked authority within these groups.
They also highlight a crucial point. While we need to be aware of the potential harm, it's also essential to understand the factors that make people vulnerable to cult recruitment in the first place. This is where the overlap with our next topic, conspiracy theories, becomes really interesting.
Yes. Let's talk about conspiracy theories.
Okay.
We all love a good conspiracy theory. But where does harmless speculation cross the line into dangerous delusion? And how does this tie into the psychology of cults? It seems like there's a connection between the allure of cults and the way people get drawn into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
They both offer like alternative explanations of the world, often challenging mainstream narratives.
Right.
And appealing to those who feel like they're on the outside looking in.
That's a really astute observation.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories like cults often tap into our desire for meaning and order in a world that can feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Yeah.
They offer simple explanations for complex events, frequently placing blame on hidden forces or shadowy organizations.
And those explanations can be really appealing, especially if they confirm our existing biases or make us feel like we're in the know, privy to some secret knowledge that most people are unaware of.
Exactly. Conspiracy theories thrive on secrecy and official denial.
Hey.
When authorities dismiss certain claims or refuse to provide information, it can fuel suspicion and create fertile ground for those theories to take root.
Okay, let's look at a few specific examples.
Okay.
One of the sources you sent focuses on the Roswell incident, which is like the granddaddy of all UFO conspiracy theories.
Right.
It's a story that continues to fascinate people even today.
Roswell is a classic example of how a conspiracy theory can take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Fueled by conflicting accounts, government secrecy, and our enduring fascination with the unknown.
So just to recap, in 1947, there was this crash near Roswell, New Mexico.
Right.
The military initially reported it as a flying disc, but then they quickly changed their story and claimed it was a weather balloon.
And that shift in the narrative is what ignited the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
People began questioning the initial cover-up, wondering what the government was really trying to hide.
And the fact that this happened during the early days of the Cold War, a time of heightened paranoia and suspicion, only added to the intrigue.
Absolutely.
People were already primed to believe that governments were keeping secrets, and Roswell seemed to confirm those fears.
The socio-political context plays a huge role in the spread of conspiracy theories.
Right.
They often flourish during times of uncertainty or social upheaval, providing a sense of order and control in a world that feels like it's spinning out of control.
Let's jump ahead a few decades to a more recent and sensitive topic.
Okay.
9/11 conspiracy theories.
Right.
You included some sources that discuss the truthers, those who believe that the official account of the 9/11 attacks is a fabrication.
9/11 was a profoundly traumatic event for the entire world.
Yeah.
And in the aftermath of such a tragedy, it's natural for people to grapple with questions and try to make sense of what happened.
But some of the claims made by 9/11 truthers are pretty out there.
Yeah.
Like the idea that the towers were pre-planted with explosives and that the planes were merely a distraction.
Those claims often rely on selective evidence, misinterpretations, and flawed logic. While it's important to question official narratives and hold those in power accountable, it's equally important to apply critical thinking and avoid jumping to conclusions based on incomplete information or unsubstantiated claims.
It's a delicate balance between healthy skepticism and falling down a rabbit hole of unfounded accusations.
Precisely. And this brings us to our final example. The death of Princess Diana.
Yeah.
It's a story that so many people feel deeply connected to.
Right.
Which perhaps makes it even more susceptible to conspiracy theories.
Diana's death in that car crash in 1997 shocked the world. And theories about what really happened began swirling almost immediately.
One of the most prominent theories was put forward by Mohammed al-Fayed, the father of Dodi Fayed, who died alongside Diana.
Right. He accused the British royal family of orchestrating the crash, alleging that Diana and Dodi were assassinated to prevent their marriage.
And that theory gained traction because of Diana's strained relationship with the royal family and the presence of paparazzi pursuing her car, which contributed to the tragic circumstances of the crash.
Tragic events, especially those involving beloved public figures, often give rise to conspiracy thinking.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept that someone like Diana could die in such a seemingly random and preventable accident.
Right.
Conspiracy theories, even if they're dark and unfounded, offer a sense of order and purpose, a way to make sense of something that feels senseless.
So we've gone from the Freemasons with their secret rituals to cults and their charismatic leaders to conspiracy theories and our attempts to find meaning in the midst of chaos.
Right.
It's clear that these are complex topics with no easy answers.
And that's where the importance of critical thinking really comes into focus.
How can we navigate this world of secrets, beliefs, and misinformation without getting lost in a maze of speculation and delusion?
That's a great question and a crucial one. I mean, we've seen how these groups and these theories can be so alluring, so convincing. How can we protect ourselves from falling prey to misinformation and manipulation?
It all comes down to developing and honing our critical thinking skills.
Okay.
We need to be able to evaluate information, objectively question our assumptions, and recognize the tactics used by those who seek to manipulate us.
Easier said than done, right?
It's definitely a challenge, but there are some practical steps we can take.
What?
First and foremost, seek out multiple sources of information.
Oh.
Don't rely on a single website, book, or social media post.
Right.
Cross-reference information, look for corroborating evidence, and consider different perspectives.
So basically, don't just take things at face value. Do your research, dig a little deeper?
Exactly. And when you're evaluating a source, consider its credibility and potential biases.
Okay.
Who's behind the information?
Yeah.
What are their motivations?
Are they presenting a balanced view, or are they pushing a particular agenda?
This reminds me of those examples we talked about, like the 9/11 truthers or the theories surrounding Diana's death. Those groups tend to present selective evidence that supports their claims, ignoring anything that contradicts their narrative.
That's a common tactic used by those spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
They cherry-pick facts to fit their pre-existing beliefs, creating an illusion of truth while ignoring the bigger picture.
So multiple sources, check for bias, and what else?
Another key skill is questioning your own assumptions.
Okay.
We all have biases and preconceived notions.
Yeah.
It's important to be aware of these and to challenge them.
Right.
Ask yourself, why do I believe this? What evidence supports this belief?
Okay.
Am I open to other possibilities?
It's about being honest with yourself, even if it means questioning some deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely. And finally, be wary of emotional appeals and fear-mongering.
Okay.
Many cults and conspiracy theories prey on people's fears and anxieties.
Right. Offering simplistic solutions to complex problems or promising a sense of belonging and purpose in a world that can feel overwhelming.
Which brings us back to those cult examples like the Manson family and Rajneeshpuram.
Right.
Those groups offered a sense of community and belonging, but at a terrible cost.
That's a crucial point. Genuine community and belonging should not come at the expense of your freedom, your individuality, or your critical thinking skills.
So to recap, seek out multiple sources, check for bias, question your assumptions, and be wary of emotional manipulation. These are all essential tools for navigating this world of information overload and discerning fact from fiction.
Right.
But what about those specific tactics that cults use? Are there red flags we can look out for to protect ourselves?
That's a great point, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
Cults often use particular techniques to recruit and control members.
Yeah.
Recognizing these tactics can not only help you protect yourself from cults, but from other forms of manipulation as well.
Okay, give us the inside scoop. What are some of those cult tactics we should be aware of?
One common tactic is love bombing,
Okay.
where new recruits are showered with attention, affection, and praise. It creates a sense of instant belonging and makes them more susceptible to the group's influence.
It's like being swept off your feet, but in a much more sinister context.
Exactly. Another common tactic is isolation.
Right.
Cults often try to separate members from their families and friends, cutting them off from outside influences and making them more dependent on the group.
And once you're isolated, it becomes much harder to see things objectively or to get help if you need it.
That's right. Cults also use information control, limiting access to outside sources and reinforcing their own ideology through constant indoctrination and repetition.
It's like they're creating an echo chamber where you're only exposed to one point of view, one set of beliefs.
Precisely. And finally, cults often use guilt, shame, and fear to control members.
Okay.
They may threaten divine punishment, social ostracism, or even physical harm if members disobey or question the group's teachings.
So it's a combination of positive reinforcement, like the love bombing, and negative reinforcement, like guilt and fear, to keep people in line.
Exactly. Recognizing these tactics is crucial for protecting yourself from manipulation, whether it's from a cult, a toxic relationship, or even a manipulative marketing campaign.
Wow, this has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the history of secret societies to the psychology of cults and conspiracy theories. It's a lot to process, and honestly, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
It's understandable to feel that way, but the key takeaway is that critical thinking is essential in a world saturated with information, especially in this age of social media and online echo chambers. We need to be discerning consumers of information, questioning our assumptions, seeking out diverse perspectives, and recognizing the tactics used by those who seek to manipulate us.
It's about empowering ourselves to think for ourselves, to question, to analyze, to dig deeper.
Precisely. And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you to consider. We've talked about the allure of these groups, the desire for belonging, purpose, and meaning. But how might our own desires for these things, our own vulnerabilities, make us susceptible to these groups or ideas?
That's a great question to reflect on. It reminds us that critical thinking is an ongoing process, and that we all need to be vigilant in guarding against manipulation. This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. We've gone from secret handshakes to hollow earths, from charismatic leaders to bioterrorism, and hopefully we've provided you with some valuable tools for navigating this complex and fascinating world.
Remember, there's always more to explore, so keep asking questions, keep digging deeper, and most importantly, keep thinking critically.